So I really have to admit that I'm super happy and very excited to have this privilege to introduce you all to Dr. Jacqueline Hobbs, also known as Oracle Girl. Welcome, Jacqueline.
I'm so excited to be here. I've been looking forward to doing this, and we're going to have a great chat today.
Yeah, and you are really such a unique being here on this earth in this time. I really would love that you introduce yourself, who you are, and what you offer for us in this special, unique time of transition and change we are all in.
I offer an embodiment of really what this summit is all about, that oneness, a signal that when you come into contact with it, you will start to embody more of the essence of who you truly are. And it has a lot of different names. I always say really that oneness is pure love. But essentially, I'm here to help people to find themselves again in this new time and to realize that there really is only one thing, and that is love itself.
Yeah, wonderful. And Jacqueline, maybe you can also help us, because there are a lot of, I would say, there is a lot of intellectual understanding on concepts around oneness, and maybe people had different, you could say, maybe mystical experiences of oneness. And can you maybe give us a bit a hint how to differentiate these different levels of our understanding, what oneness truly is?
Well, oneness is either there or it isn't. You can't make it. You know, it's something that genuinely starts to turn up either with or in yourself or in the presence of others, because there is genuine care and self-witnessing and the freedom for everyone to be just exactly the way they are. And it's not something you can put conditions on, and it's not something you can travel towards. And that's why everybody talks about it, because they are mystified by it, because it has its own rules and nobody knows what they are, but they certainly know when it's not there. And so we have a host of teachings, books, and literatures about the mystery that it is. And we even think that it's a mystical state, because in its absence, it's something that seems to elude us. But actually, it's just something that's there when it is. And when it isn't, it isn't.
Yeah. That's touching something really deep in me, because would you say that when or maybe when there is a longing where we notice that kind of we can be really different than we are maybe acting in our daily life, how can we, what does this offer to us, or where can this lead us? Do you know what I mean?
I do. When you have that longing, you're actually resonating at the level of the slave self, but you don't necessarily realize it. You're perhaps confined in a frequency where that thing that you're looking for, that runs through all existence, that you know is there, has not shown up for you and has eluded you. And the slave self actually shuts that out. It confines you to a way of being where you don't experience it and you can't find it. And actually, that frequency is nothing to do with you. It's something that has been introduced on the planet, and everybody has been forced into actually going along with it. And what's wonderful is that now we can start to re-experience all of our authenticity and our passion, because we've outgrown that frequency. We're also actually refusing to go along with it. And the times themselves, which are nothing but the true essence of ourselves, are demanding that we resonate all the time in oneness with ourselves and each other.
Mhm. Yeah. And this kind of also would clarify that when we try to find oneness by accessing the faculties which the slave self has, mainly the mind and concepts, then we will not find it.
Yes, you always fail. And then you have to become part of a spiritual search, and you have to sign up for concepts and images, because what you're looking for is already absent. And of course, if it's absent, you'll never be able to find it, because you only find something when you already are it and it's present.
Mhm. Yeah, beautiful. And maybe you can also say a little bit more about the slave self. I mean, that can make maybe people who hear it for the first time make quite curious. So maybe share a little bit more about it.
Yes, it sounds strange, but strangely, it also resonates with people when they first hear it, if it's the first time. The slave self is actually an image of you, and an image is always partial. But an image can be very enticing, especially if it's introduced to you with certain benefits. Let me give you an example. You know, if you're shown an image of yourself on a TV screen as being really well and healthy and abundant, and all you've got to do is X, Y, and Z, you can then be very enticed into going along with the suggestions of that image. And before you know it, you are one with that image. And then you are actually confined by it and a slave to it, unless you are very strong and you are able to reconcile the frequency of that image in the enormity and the whole presence of your personal field. So the slave self is what you become when you take on an image or a partial representation of yourself that comes up inside or outside. It might come up inside in the nature of a thought that's highly persuasive, or it might come up outside through a teaching spiritually, through an advertisement that we see in the media, through a political ideology or an economic theory of reality. And what happens is that the strength and the potency of that image is so appealing to us in some way or form, and that will be personal to each individual, that we override our own personal sovereignty and we give ourselves into that. And before we know it, we then become something other than our full selves. And the slave self is actually a technology. It's not just an innocent process that happens while we perhaps fall in love with our own reflection in a mirror, or we join up with others and find something favorable about ourselves and forego the rest that we don't even realize is there. It's a little bit more deliberate than that. It is a technology on this planet which has been introduced to shape people's minds. And it's based on an understanding originally of nature and how that works. And then it's been used in certain ways to produce certain outcomes. And behind the science of images, as I like to call it, which has produced the slave self, there is a particular type of force or agency which wishes to appropriate the resources of humankind, to conform to certain agendas or to play out certain actions, so that the results can be observed, and also so that people's love, their affection, their energy, their skills and their talents can be used to benefit others, which of course the majority of us want to happen. We want to benefit others. We are very caring and sharing individuals, but sometimes there can be other agendas there that we don't even know about.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I'm aware that you have many events already about this topic. If people are interested to go deeper with it, there is a lot in your library. But maybe just here, how can we really drop then deeper into our true essence when this frequency is running, and I guess we are very used to it because this operates already since I don't know how long. So
Yes.
what supports us in not following that frequency but really aligning with our pure love and true nature.
You have to come across another physical marker of the embodiment of that frequency in your own reality. And then your whole being starts to realign with the integrity of your own self. I always give the analogy of tuning forks. Some will have heard this before. One note is struck, and then the other tuning fork actually starts to ring at the same note because it picks it up, and then they both strengthen together. There you've got an amazing picture of independence and togetherness, healthy interdependency without reliance or control. And that oscillation between two poles, where each pole is separately and very clearly defined, nevertheless forming one note, that is oneness. And so oneness is not this kind of peachy idea of everybody getting along together in truth, peace, and harmony. Actually, it's a very testing process when you assert your individuality in togetherness and really deeply enter into communion with that one note that you both produce. It's an experience of deep surrender. It can be quite uncomfortable because you don't know where it's going to take you. You can fear that you're going to hurt or upset someone else by truly being yourself while desperately wanting to have the other person included because you like and respect and want to honor them so much. That's the nature of the human condition. So actually, oneness becomes a process of fierce authenticity and belonging. There's a passion to it, but there can also be a healthy degree of risk and fear and even feeling out of control in a very good way, because you are opening yourself up to all of existence, all of yourself, all of everything and everyone else as well, without necessarily saying the way it should be. It's the difference between a concept and a state that you head for, and throwing the parameters out the window and being open to whatever will happen, while very, very strictly being true to yourself and exactly what is going on in that moment, which is very, very defined. We have bodies, and our bodies tell us exactly when we are and we are not comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when I follow your words and kind of see how my system responds to it, I really get that the unknown, really being open to the unknown, seems to be really also a crucial part in it. And the image also which came is because you mentioned these notes, it's more like also in an orchestra where you are kind of, you really value your different instruments, you know, kind of you keep your instrument clean and pure and the others the same. And then we improvise and we kind of, we tune into something bigger than we are and then be part of an improvised piece of music. This is just kind of how I perceive it, and it's not so easy to put it in words, but it goes in this direction.
Well, I think you're doing quite well. I mean, the people in the orchestra, yes, they tune into each other, but we are not the orchestra, and we're not even the conductor who's in charge of the orchestra. We're the space in which all of that takes place. And we have a duty to hold the space of our own being in relation to everything that's going on with that orchestra and that conductor, and see what happens as we place ourselves in proximity with that and watch and experience what is produced as a result. And so you started your sentence there by saying, it's interesting as I follow that and tune in. What's even more interesting is what simply happens as the being called Puria follows the words and tunes in. You are the enormity and the vastness of all of existence as it unfolds. And that's pure love itself. That's where the oneness is. And you can't substitute that experience for a code or a practice or a dogma about what should happen, or even a definition of what that is. It's a body value which actually you hold in place through the integrity of your own being by answering to yourself and being very deeply truthful about what's going on for you in relation to the conductor and the orchestra and what's playing, while being fully aware that you're all of that as well.
Yeah, this is what I got. When I heard your words, I felt really this expansion, and kind of as I would look from inside out, from outside in, from different angles. So I would say I was more aware of these different aspects of what I am, and yeah, this multidimensionality became much more tangible. And I want to name it because maybe people who are listening maybe can also sense that already happening by just being in your proximity and following this conversation.
That's the joy of existence. We love to dine out on all of the beautiful details. And that expansion that you're describing, which is also a solidification and a self-defining and a self and other defining, will always be present there. You feel more yourself, more secure and at one with who you are, at the same time as being more at one with everything that is going on. It's both. And that has nothing to do with an image of oneness or a definition which will say the way that that is, or the way that should be, or the way that it will be. That will always be partial and something that we can play with as well as part of the joy of dining out afterwards on the experience. But that all comes after the fact. It's not the starting place. And that is the issue that we have today with all of the images in our society which talk about oneness, but are nothing to do with oneness.
Yeah, and what's also so beautiful is that I also noticed that when I'm like that, I totally feel connected with everything. I'm everything. And there is, maybe you can talk to that, because so many people are longing for this feeling really connected and for community. And
Yes. We are already connected. And when that feeling comes up that you're not, and that longing starts to happen, that's actually the immensity and the enormity of your own purity spontaneously transmuting the aspect of yourself that believes that you are not one. There's no searching or seeking going on in that equation. It doesn't even arise. It's not necessary, because you are simultaneously lost and found in the dynamic of experiencing an aspect of existence in your own reality that feels that oneness may have eluded them or disappeared. And there's room for both. There's no conflict. We can be lost and we can be found. And those things can take place in us at the same time, around us, and that still be our connectedness. At the frequency of pure love, there is nothing but oneness, and we are already a part of each other, at the same time as being highly individuated and one essential, recognizable identity. And that leads us then to be able to discern and make amazing choices about our world, because we come across other representations and also images of oneness, which may seem very sweet and very amazing on the surface because they look and feel so good. But actually, when we start to notice what happens to us in our own body field around those suggestions and those images, which is all an image is, it's just a suggestion, we find ourselves maybe losing touch with ourselves, not able to have personal sovereignty even over our body, not even able to feel ourselves anymore because it feels so blissful. Well, bliss is wonderful, but if you can't feel yourself, you don't know where that bliss is going. You certainly are not in healthy control of what's going on. And you also can't feel what's behind that image and what its intention might be, positive or negative. And there are actually many seemingly healthy images of oneness in the world right now that talk about us all being together, us all having a life where we share everything and everything's green and squeaky clean. But actually, they're quite sinister in their agenda, and they seek to divorce human beings from the fact of the oneness that they have already and bring them into a type of existence where they no longer have control over their own bodies and their lives.
Mm-hmm. And maybe I repeat myself, but on this point, could you also give us a differentiation when we would really know when we follow this true oneness or the image?
Because there is no space to choose. You are not given the choice. And you always have choice. There will be pressure to do something which hasn't naturally arisen inside yourself. Or there will be pressure within to make a certain decision before you've actually caught up with your own body signaling system that says yes in your own language, in your own way. You won't be given the space to go through that process. Now, I know that there are many situations in life where there is urgency, where you have to decide. But even so, you will have permission to decide. And that decision will come from your own self as an equal match to what is going on around you. Otherwise, the oneness is lost and it becomes a dominance and it becomes a taking over and it becomes a negative form of control. If something is really right for you that someone else knows or sees, or at the moment you don't see and is more deeply underneath, what is more deeply underneath, which is the oneness of reality, will come up under that pressure to show you, you will register it, and you will be able to match in exactly the same way what is being communicated to you around you. It's where you are being forced to actually comply with an image rather than the process of your own being, which is informed by nature and the oneness of all reality, that you have a problem. And the signs are you won't be able to feel yourself, or you will be able to feel all of yourself and nothing of the other. It's always both. You can register both parties, and there is that expansion that you just described that you had, to be able then to be clear about what's right, whether previously you knew or not. It's self and other, and there is no sacrifice on either side.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned the word care previously a little bit, and maybe you can expand on that, because I would say when we are in that, then true care is only really possible.
Yes, the bond of affection that runs through this universe is almost like a contract of love between us, our future and our present selves. And we will naturally have that deep care in us when oneness is present. That is another sign that we are firmly in our own setting And we are in our own positive power, and we are acting in alignment with integrity, truth, purity, and nature's principles. Care will not be absent. Care will be shown towards us by others. And it's very easy to discern when someone doesn't care and they are just telling you to do it. Care is a natural corollary of oneness, because everything and everyone is being taken into consideration. And it is immediately evident from the inside out that there would be a losing of connection, of personal power, of love and truth and beauty, if we were to venture into an arena where there was a lack of care. So care is actually a currency. It builds, and we move out of it into ever more amazing self-nurturing and other nurturing forms of reality. That's how we build community. It comes out of a deep care for others and ourselves. And that care will naturally already be there. That's how you know it's the right direction to go in and you're in the right circumstance, making the right decision. Because if that isn't there, the juice is not in the movement anymore, and it feels compromised or stuck or sluggish, and our body will tell us. Or we have a kind of fear, not the fear which is actually quite good for us, which pushes us beyond our comfort zone and our limits and makes us take on more of the truth of ourselves, but that fear that goes, but we're going to lose a certain type of freedom which is intrinsically right and pure and correct for all beings. We're going to experience the destruction of something or the physical harm of someone that is unnecessary. Care is always there showing up. And if it's absent, there may be a course correct to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I sense there might be really very different and unique ways of expressing our care. This is one thing I notice, and the other is that we might really be very fast and flexible in adjusting what is in this moment my true expression of care.
Everybody is really asking themselves at the moment that over and over again, because we are being asked in the name of care to do things that don't necessarily care or bring more care.
Yeah.
And so it is an internal inquiry now over where the real oneness actually lies. Does it lie in everyone doing the same thing, seemingly for the suggestion of a correct reason? Or is the marker of that deep in our very being, a voice that cries out and goes, this is right, or this is wrong? That voice of oneness inside us is incredibly loud, passionate, and dynamic, and it shows itself in a multitude of forms, all of which we can celebrate. Mm-hmm. That care that's fundamental to that voicing is something that we get to prescribe, each and every single human being. It is in the hands of the one, and then it becomes part of the manifestation of the many.
I just want to pause a little bit because it's really very rich what you say, and that it really kind of, I feel I want to make myself so big to that it has space and reaches me everywhere.
It's here. Oneness is here right now. And all you have to do is feel it. This is it.
Yeah.
Job done. No years of inquiry, practicing, thinking, investigating, teaching, learning. A marker can turn up in your reality of that quality. And then your whole life simply readjusts and realigns around that marker in your own being. That's who I am.
So lovely, Jacqueline. And it's also interesting because when my system is vibrating in your words, in this frequency, in this natural state of being, an image I receive, and maybe you can clarify that, but the sense in me is that as if there wouldn't run blood through my body, vessels filled with blood, but what I get is like a light golden fluid moving through my system. And I don't know where this sense comes from, but this is what arises in this frequency. And can you maybe say something to that?
You're having a direct experience of what gets called by me the gold frequency. That is the actual physical frequency where we are all joined together already. It's the essence of humanity.
Yeah. And I also notice when I really am aware of that, I see it also like threads between us and like a net which connects all different expressions of manifestation.
Yes, it's the human internet.
Yeah.
Except to define ourselves as an internet would be severely limiting. That's the least of what it is, but it's a good analogy.
Yeah. And Jacqueline, as the subtitle of the summit, also introduces us into becoming a universal self. So it how you say it in English? I'm looking for the word. It implies kind of becoming something else in the future. And my sense is when we go with something, we would not really respect or recognize that we are the oneness already. And maybe you can speak to that.
If it's already here, why would anybody need to become something, especially a universal self? Who wants to be a universal self? I mean, look at some of the definitions of universal self out there. Permanent bliss. How boring. Continual peace. Self-absorption in all that is. These definitions are straitjackets on your reality. What about the juice of life? What about the sadness and the disappointment, which will be excluded from that reality and that you won't necessarily even allow yourself to have in preference for that image of perfection? Where is all of life, which actually can quite freely come and go through the vista of your own experience and not be very much of a problem unless you hold on to it and make it bad or wrong? Why do we need to hold up in front of ourselves a prescription for how things could or need to be when reality itself is so deep and so rich and will never bring us any harm or problem if we don't identify with any one aspect of it and try to make it our own. This is all the mechanism of the slave self, trying to become a universal self. And it's the realm of concept, image, doctrine, political ideology, science, religion, spirituality. And those things now are being made to dance to a different tune. They must become servants to oneness, rather than trying to say and make people into the oneness that they've lost touch with.
Yeah. This might be a relief to some people watching this, or maybe for some really creating turmoil, because it turns your world upside down. And yeah,
that actually is the purification of that image and that false sense of self, that slave self, through the wide expanse of your own oneness. It's what we're here to do. To register all of reality and all of the potential experiences of our own oneness that we can have, rather than preferencing just one of them and trying to make the whole world like that.
Yeah, and maybe kind of I'm aware of the time and we are coming a bit to an end, but I don't want to miss the opportunity to introduce what you call dreaming, because my sense is that when really more people really understand this dreaming, maybe this can also support us in our time right now. Can you speak that a little bit?
We are beings of love, and that means that we are dreamers. I don't mean dreaming about something that's not there, that isn't possible, or dreaming while you're asleep. Dreaming is the spontaneous generation of pure love in this reality, and all the things we do and experience at that level of frequency. And in that frequency, all of the world reconciles itself back into that true oneness that we all are shaped by and that we all embody in truth as ourselves. Dreaming happens when our frequency reaches a certain level and we start to seed new realities with the intensity of our desire to go even further than the perfection of the one moment of ourselves that we're experiencing, that we know will never belong to us and never has been us and never will be us. It is the leap into the infinity of existence, even deeper, which already exists as the reality of our own selves. And that is a creativity, it is a drama, it is a beauty, and it is a tragedy. It is all of existence as it unfolds, mutates, and changes, which we have absolutely no control over. We are the dream. And what's happening right now is that you are aligning in your own being through your own source connection with the reality of that to whatever extent it is correct and right for you. That's a fundamental act of purity, and that's what you're here to do.
Wow. Thank you so much, Jacqueline. This was really very rich, and I'm aware that we kind of could only touch on certain topics, But as I mentioned already, you have really a lot available on your website. Maybe you can say to our audience how to find you and how best to continue if they feel really called to go deeper.
Everyone is welcome and everyone is included. My website is oraclegirl.org. You can just put Oracle Girl into your search engine. And what will come up is an invitation for you to drop everything and just go back to yourself. Explore the pages, and if it's right for you, just get started with the reboot group on Wednesdays and Saturdays.
Yeah, thank you so much for everybody joining us, taking your time and being open to receive what we were sharing here. And of course, Jacqueline, I'm so happy that you made space in your schedule and made yourself available to participate in this year's Global Oneness Summit. So deeply thank you to you.
This has made me very happy today. Thanks very much.